Live? Wait a minute, going live. We're live.
All live?
Live? Yep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour. Now, we've had a few technical difficulties, and it's basically saying currently that there's an error, so you may be able to hear me, but not see me currently. Dave, from your end. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour. Perfect. Now, right, you can see us all. Which is great. So I apologise that we are late onto this stream. So welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour. We was experiencing a few technical difficulties before coming on today. So I apologise that we're about 4 or 5 minutes late. You can see
Sam, just pause for 1 second.
So I apologise that we are late onto this stream. So welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour. We was experiencing a few technical difficulties before coming on today. So I apologise that we're about 4 or 5 minutes late. You can see
just pause for 1 second.
So I apologise that we are late onto this stream. So welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour.
We have basically your voice is looping. Just pause for 1 second, and I can't figure out where it's coming from. Let me just close. We have basically your.
Are people still able to watch us, by the way?
We are live right now.
Yeah, so I apologise for this, by the way.
Right, okay, there we go. I think I've fixed the problem. We are now live.
Right.
Start again.
Yes, we'll start. Can we edit this for the recorded version, Dave?
I'll try. Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Perfect. So, welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour. So, I apologise that we are 6 minutes behind. We've had a few technical difficulties this morning. This is the first time for us streaming on YouTube. So, once again, I can only apologise for that. We'll basically correct that for next week. So, welcome again for another episode. Today we're going to be focusing on suicide and suicide prevention. So I just want to put out there that this may be triggering for some people. So if you do need to reach out for support afterwards, you can email me on sam.tyrer, Tyrer, at lscft.nhs.uk. And also, I just want to plug now a platform called the Hub of Hope, which is where you can basically type in your postcode and that will give you access to all the available services local to you. So if this is the first time for you tuning into the Mental Health Family Hour, just to give you a brief introduction to who I am. So my name's Sam Tyrer. I'm the Prevention and Engagement Lead at Lancashire and South Cumbria Foundation Trust. I'm also the founder of an educational service called Change Talks, which aim is to prevent mental health issues in young people. And now I will hand it over to my co-host, Dave, who's been working so hard on getting the tech right this morning. So thank you, Dave. I bet you're feeling slightly stressed at the moment.
Hey, look, it makes a difference because usually it's you that's stressed and me that goes, yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. My name is Dave, aka Mindset by Dave. I am the host of this YouTube channel that you are watching this on. And obviously the co-host of this show, someone who just basically the easiest way to say it is that cheesy expression, be the person you needed when you were younger. I'm trying to be the person that I needed when I was younger for people. So I'm someone who does actually have personal lived experience with suicide, and therefore this particular topic, it may be one of the most difficult to talk about, but I think it is one of, if not the most important to talk about.
I agree. I think it's really important that we do open up the conversation in regards to suicide, because many of us on this webinar today have been impacted by it, which we will share some of those experiences further into the webinar. Basically today as well, we are going to be starting talking about the professional element, so the training available in regards to suicide prevention, and then we will be going into the lived experience element later on in the webinar. I just want to say first a huge thank you to Kath, who stepped in on behalf of Vicki Wagstaff last minute. So Kath, can I first ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, of course. Kath Hudspeth from NHS England, working as part of Lancashire and South Cumbria ICS. So that's a partnership of health providers, local authorities, ambulance service, police, a really wide partnership. And we're all working together to try and encourage people to talk about suicide.
Thanks, Kath. And then Katharine?
I'm Katharine, so I deliver mental health and wellbeing training in Fylde and Wyre in Lancashire. It's called Connect 5, and I work for a charity called Encompass.
Perfect. And then Matthew, or Matt.
Yeah, I'm Matt, and I also work for Encompass. Well, an arm of it called Lancashire Carer Service as a review and support officer. with a specialisation in mental health. And for my role, I'm actually not only reviewing plans for carers, but I'm also supporting carers over the phone for the unpaid carers who are family members or friends who are looking after somebody who's struggling with mental health conditions. And one thing that always comes up is the challenges they have with helping those that are at risk of suicide or having different sorts of thoughts of suicide. So it's about supporting them and also encouraging them when they found that one thing that helps bring them out of it. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. So straight into things, Kath, in regards to Lancashire and South Cumbria. So we do have people watching from all over the country. However, we are going to start just talking about our area, but I'm sure there will be something similar in your localities as well. So you will be able to find that out. So Kath, could you just tell us basically what is available in regards to suicide prevention throughout Lancashire?
Okay, I mean, there is a lot going on, and this is many partners all working together. One of the things we wanted to focus on, we've commissioned training. Well, let's go back one step. First of all, we want people to be able to talk about suicide, to use the word suicide, and to actually get the word suicide out there. And that's across employers, local authorities, individuals, groups, all across the whole area. And part of that is we've commissioned some training through some really well-respected training providers. I've given you some links of how you can access the training courses, but certainly mental health first aid, suicide first aid. There's a whole list of training that is free and accessible, but not all of it is accessible online at the moment due to COVID restrictions. But that is something that you can access, and it ranges from half-day courses to 2.5-day courses. There's also smaller courses as well, just to encourage people to raise awareness about suicide, not to be afraid of saying the word. So to broaden that out, we're also working with local authorities, employers, and community groups, as many as we can. So if anybody is listening to this who is representative of those groups, you can make contact with us and we can provide you some useful links. But we're doing things like we have a policy guidance document that gets employers to look at their current policies to see if they're robust enough to support people who may be affected by suicide in the workplace, or to support people who may be feeling in crisis in the workplace. We've got a directory online, and Sam, I know you're going to share the link to this, but it has over 400 organisations, and it's wider than just support for suicide. It's wider mental health. It's issues that are affecting people in lockdown at the moment and are having an impact upon mental health. And you can search on that by district. We have a link to our orange button scheme, and I'm wearing my orange button now. So if you have undertaken mental health first aid, suicide first aid training within the last 2 years, you can apply for an orange button. And the orange button basically says that the wearer is comfortable having a conversation, can be approached. We've got 606-ish of these out in Lancashire and South Cumbria at the moment. We want to make it bigger. So I'd mentioned quite a lot of awful sort of links that we can provide, but we're really trying to develop a groundswell where people feel more comfortable having a conversation, and people feel more comfortable seeking advice and help from organisations like Kath and like Matt are working with, and actually able to know where they can get local support, either from a national organisation, from a local, or from a very, very local. Some suicide bereavement organisations are very, very small and sort of very local, but they do fabulous work.
Can I ask you a question then, just in regards to something you said about people struggle to talk about suicide? In your opinion, and maybe other people want to contribute to this as well, why do people struggle to talk about it, do you think?
There's probably many myths. I think there is a perception from some people that if they talk about it, they will make it happen. If you look at Zero Suicide Alliance training, and we'd sent the link, that is a 20-minute course that is just all about starting the conversation. It may be that if you see somebody who you think genuinely needs help, you have a conversation about the weather. You ask them if they want help. There is a worry and a fear that you may make things worse. In my view, if somebody is already feeling in that situation, I'm not sure you can make it feel that much worse. But just by having a conversation, you may be able to provide some support.
And has anyone else got anything to add to that, Dave or Katharine?
Yeah, I mean, I did my suicide prevention training with Papyrus last year, and I was, even with all the mental health kind of knowledge I've got, was still totally and utterly surprised when someone said, when that's one of the first things we talk about, is that you're not going to put the idea in someone's head. And one of the things that we talked about there was the idea that ask it as a direct question. Because if you kind of ask it to someone and go, like, especially if it's in a workplace, or like if you're a teacher or something, and you kind of make it like, by the way, I'm just checking in, just asking, just in case, you're not thinking maybe about suicide, are you? And if you ask it in that way, obviously it kind of continues to add to the stigma, because the person looks at it and thinks that you're asking in an awkward way. Then if they are thinking about it, they're more inclined to actually say no. But also, if you're in the workplace and you're saying, I've just got to ask, it's now suggesting that you're not asking because you want to know, you're asking because you're ticking a box. So be direct, say to a person when you like, because they'll give away various signs. So they might say, I don't want to be here anymore, I can't do this anymore, those type of things. If someone says that, say, when you say, I don't want to be here anymore, or when you say, I can't do this anymore, do you mean you're thinking about suicide? And be as direct as that. And it sounds terrifying, but weirdly, if you go about it in such a direct way, and the person is, then first of all, you're not going to put the idea into their head. If they're not thinking about it, they'll be like, no, what you on about? Like where did that come from? What gave you that impression? It's like, okay, cool. But if they are, and you've been direct about it, they've been like, okay, yeah, actually, this is someone that really wants to know, and they're more likely to open up. So it is good. I'm just going to let Matthew back in.
And I just want to flip things for a second. I'd be interested in people's opinion on this. So in terms of when I work in schools, I get many, many young people now saying that they are going to kill themselves. They are chucking the terminology around left, right and centre. If they're having a bad day, I'm going to kill myself. That's what they're saying very frequently. Now, I've worked with some schools where unfortunately a pupil has ended their life, and for a period of weeks before that they told their friends that they were going to end their life, but no one believed it, so no one acted on it. How can we change that? Because every time I go into a school and say, would you believe your friends if they said they were going to take their life, no one puts their hand up. They don't believe it, so nobody's actually acting on it. So what do we do about this?
I mean, I can answer part of that. I think part of it is actually to get the word out there and to make it a more comfortable conversation to have, and to reduce that stigma. I can't imagine how somebody would feel if they really feel that they are going to end their life, but actually that there is such a stigma around it, they can't seek help and support from anybody. Schools are encouraged, they can access the free training that we offer as well. Employers can access it, members of the community can access it. It is about it. I don't think any of us would say it's a comfortable conversation to have, but actually, if you've had a bit of training, or if you've looked at some websites and you at least know some basic phone numbers of where you could signpost somebody to if they said, yes, actually, I am feeling suicidal, straight away, you feel a little bit more equipped. And that's the groundswell of conversation. So I think that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think another part, especially when I think there's a difference, isn't there, between being in a professional capacity and having a conversation with somebody and being close to somebody in a family or a friendship. And I think for that person who is on the receiving end of that information, it's hard to accept that someone you love is at that point. It's really hard to process that, isn't it, if you think about it? So I think it's just that awareness and education for people that you know, someone that's experiencing suicidal thoughts, it's just the same as anybody else. It's just some thoughts that are going round in their head. We don't know how far that's gone yet, and it's about exploring that. That doesn't, you know, it's just about encouraging people to still have that compassion and love, even though it's something hard for your heart to accept about someone.
No, I think so. One of the difficulties within the schools is there's that many of them saying it now, though. So actually, people are saying it just irrationally when they don't actually mean it. So actually, when someone does mean it, nobody's acting on it. Now, how do we sort of combat that?
I understand where you're coming from there, Sam. It's a little bit like, you know, we were all brought up being told the story of the boy who cried wolf, you know, and that's so. First of all, to any kids that are watching it, like, please don't throw that phrase around irrationally. You know, don't throw it around flippantly, because, you know, we don't want it to be a point where people say it so much that people stop believing it. I mean, I had this experience with some of my friends back in the day, because I've had depression for a long period of time. When I say I'm struggling, it didn't get taken as seriously as when someone who's never really struggled says it. When someone who's never struggled before, everyone in the friend group was like, oh my God, such and such is struggling, we need to go and help her. And then I'd open up about the fact of how much I was struggling, and it was like, oh, that's just Dave. Dave has bipolar disorder. He struggles all the time. It's probably just another one of those. The second part of it is, if someone does open up about that, what's the worst that happens if you take them seriously? And they're wrong. Okay, they're not truly suicidal, and you say actually, oh yeah, I'm there for you, I'm here for you. What's the worst that happens then? The worst that happens in that situation is if you kind of act as if it's serious when it isn't. Is that your friend realizes that they support you, and hopefully you end up in a conversation about maybe not doing that unless you are serious. But the worst case scenario, if they say it and it's true, and you don't take them seriously, is that you might be the person that they've reached out to, and that, like, there's most people that are suicidal believe that there's no one there for them, and we will take any proof that is the case. So if someone says, I can't help you right now, that can be the proof that you don't need much proof that there's no one there for you if that person can't help you. And so that's the worst that could happen if you don't take it seriously. So I would say, basically, as someone hearing those things, always take it seriously. And if the other person is being hyperbolic, is not kind of is over exaggerating or whatever, okay. But you've gone out and been a compassionate person in that situation. That's the worst and that's the worst that's happened. You misplaced some of your compassion. I'd rather that than kind of us become desensitized to these things and then not actually reach out or, you know, speak to someone when they actually do need it.
Yeah.
I think as well, sorry, Matt.
So I was going to say, I think as well within schools and combating it, the whole thing of people saying that, you know, are going to kill themselves, the terminology has been around for decades, just said in different ways. And it's almost like a repetition thing that they've heard it said, and also it doesn't help with things like social media or films and stuff, you know, and also some virtual like reality stuff where they highlight that of somebody, you know, where you go to, I heard one where you go to the top of a tower and then jump off. I have issue with games like that because you're actually saying there's no fear in doing this. And that's a desensitization. But I think one of the important things for schools to combat this is also to have a wider conversation and almost bring it into curriculum on mental health. You know, for years they've looked at physical, which is fine and great, but mental health is just as important. It's not just a psychology class they do near the end of like time in school, but this has got to be a constant lesson, because a lot of thing with young people is, you know, by nature, a lot do want to be compassionate help, but they react in a way because they don't understand. So they, you know what I mean? So they put and if you're a young person listening to this, you know, I know it's normal for you to put on a thing of not understanding, of almost fear, do you know what I mean? Of thinking that person is, you know, a bit of a freak, a bit different, or be fearful of having conversations with people and encourage them. And as Dave rightly said, reaching out to them because you feel powerless, you feel unqualified, and also you don't know who to go to. So I think sometimes if school, like if you're a teacher, for assemblies, bring somebody in who has lived experiences, let the young people ask the questions. Let's break the stigma of mental health across the board, let it be normalized, but also to highlight what is on offer that the schools should have for them to access the support, and to say it's okay to ask for help. And also look at ways of having an open door policy for young people to talk about it. And where things in the school, where there's cultures of, say, bullying or whatever that causes, can also impact people's mental health in a bad way, which has been in schools forever. How do we combat this to help people and help people feel safe and help young people feel safe?
Yeah.
So for me, it's about allowing the young people, and even, I'm going to say even teachers, parents, to have a voice, to know that there is a structure in place to support them, that they are cared for, they are valued. As I say, for young people watching this, you have value, you have a purpose, and it's knowing that you are cared for and there are people you can talk to. And one thing I'd also encourage is helping young people to build a healthy support network. Whether it be school, home, whatever, might not always be parents they can talk to, but there's somebody in home life that they can talk to, or utilising, mental health services, charities, going on the Hub of Hope Act, finding what's available that they can actually access and gain that support. But it's right, it is about having friends and people who are willing to just step up and say, are you okay? You're saying this, you seem, and even by looking at them saying, you seem really, really down. Are you okay? What's going on? I'm here for you. Do you want to talk? And whatever you're going through, you do not have to go this alone. Simple words like this make the biggest difference. I know that from my own life, which I know we'll get onto a bit, but so for me, it's just that simple act, and actually also being willing to say, if somebody says it and you are concerned, it's not about holding it yourself, but sharing it, passing it on. And if it's school, to go talk to a teacher or safeguarding leader, whoever, to say, I have concerns. You're not snitching, you're not telling on somebody, you're actually taking a stand for someone.
And you shouldn't be fearful of losing out. They may think, the young person will think, I'll lose my friend if I go and tell a teacher, when actually you need to sort of think, you need to rise above that and think this person may be in danger. So please do act on that. Katharine, did you want to say something?
No. Oh, sorry. Two Katharine's on a call.
Sorry,
this is confusing. I'll tell you what, you can be a Katharine, I'll be a Kath.
Okie doke. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it sort of links back to what Dave said about those cues that people give in conversation. And this is a key bit of suicide prevention, is active listening. It's really listening to people and what they're saying. And you gave a couple of examples. I've got some written down, things like, I can't cope anymore, I've had enough, it's all got on top of me. These are these language that we use that suggests we're losing hope, we're getting into a despair situation. I think it's really interesting that young people just put it out there straight away. They don't bother with those subtle cues. They're saying, I'm going to kill myself, I want to kill myself. And I think the question has to be, why? What's going on? What's going on for you that makes you feel you want your life to come to an end? Because we know, don't we, that with suicide, it's often a situation, it's a period of distress or a trauma that somebody can't process, can't get over, that means that suicide is a solution for people. And I think it's about asking that further question. Well, go on, tell me what's going on for you. Why do you feel that strength of feeling, not dismissing it and not disregarding it?
And I think something that people need to watch out for as well, examples that I give in school, if there is a pupil that is very withdrawn for a long period of time, they are really down, they're not getting involved with conversations or anything like that, and let's say that's been going on for about 8 months or something, and all of a sudden they come in and they are absolutely ecstatic, they're really, really happy for some reason, that often is a warning sign that person has decided in their mind that they are going to end their life. The reasons being is when that happens to someone, they feel like they have nothing to worry about anymore. They can see an end. So if you do see that in someone, please do act on that straight away. So just to put an open question out there. So if I'm an individual watching this webinar and I think to myself, I really want to help, I want to prevent people taking their life, what can I do as an individual? I know we've mentioned some of the training that's available, but what else can I do? How can I act? What can I contribute to? What can I do? And that's to all of you.
I think one of the first things is be comfortable with the subject matter, be comfortable, find out information. So find out valuable information, at least have 2 numbers that you can have written down on a piece of paper in your pocket or in your wallet or in your purse or whatever, that you know that can provide support. You don't have to have a full directory, and equip yourself with free, even the Zero Suicide Alliance is 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes out of your life, and it just shows you the power of having a conversation. And from that, you are then already feeling a bit more confident. And then I think Katharine's absolutely right with, think about triggers, and it's just about informing yourself, and just sort of thinking, what would I do in this situation? And my biggest fear is, in that situation, I would automatically forget the number for Samaritans. It's one of those things. So, I write it down. It's just about being more aware. But then if you're an individual as well, and you have links in the community, we've got some great visuals that have QR codes on that are encouraging people to seek help. It's not just about suicide, it's wider mental health. What links do you have in the community where you can help to promote the same message? Just having a conversation with a friend to say, I saw this YouTube, would you like to watch it? I'm thinking of getting myself a bit more confident in suicide prevention and suicide, and find out what's out there. And just from doing those small steps, it's already building the confidence and it's reducing the stigma.
Anyone else like to contribute to that?
Yeah, I was thinking, and Kath, you're completely right. And I think one of the biggest things is, if in that instant you haven't had chance to do the training, it's just been a listening ear. Yeah. Literally just saying, look, what's going on, let's talk. What's going on for you right now? And for some people, it's just that fact of getting out what's going on with them and not holding it in anymore is enough for them to process what's going on. And and it can just become a conversation you build from. And then obviously having the support of saying, well, look, these can support you with this. You need support, but also being willing to say, if it's a case of seeing the GP or whoever, saying, do you know what, I can come with you if you want. I can support you making that phone call. I can, I will get you through the way. And it's knowing that. And also, as you talk to that person, it's also finding ways that they find ways of getting their feelings out, because it's not always verbal. It can be visual. They might like drawing, writing. They might, like walking, people process things differently. So it's looking again for that key thing that helps them process. So if they're having these thoughts, if they like to write and even encourage it, is journaling, to journaling how you feel and getting it out, and sometimes doing an act of just throwing that away, or sending it to somebody you trust and saying, like, email it, say, don't read it, just discard it, or whatever, just saying, you know what, it's out of me, it's done with. And but also within it, that if you are, as you talk to somebody, it can form a basis to look at of where you are, but provide a hope of where you've got to down the line as you start having conversations. So yeah, so it is ultimately, has been said, it's about the triggers, and it's just finding what works. And also, like I say, on the back of it is not having just one chat, but saying, let's meet again, and then using that gap to look at the things that present and talk to people, look at training, call some of the support lines yourself, and say, this is something, somebody I'm helping, what can I do? What do I need to do to support them? So the next time you meet, you will have that bit extra knowledge to help them to the next step. And also by saying, let's meet in a couple of days, and say, just hold on for that, gives them the hope that they have somebody who is there ready to help them, and all they have to do is manage 2 days. And that can make all the difference. It's about giving them a focus beyond the inward focus, to say, okay, somebody actually cares enough to give me time.
Thanks, Matt. Dave, I know I've taken over the sort of questions again. Do you want to?
That's what I bring you in for these. That's like you give me a day off.
I always end up doing it.
You give me a day off when I do this. Funnily enough, for someone who loves to talk as much as I do, the piece of advice I'm going to give is listen. And you'll notice, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed this, but we've had people talk about all sorts of stuff on this show and on my podcast, and you'll hardly ever see me react to somebody. And that's not down to the fact that, like, someone said to me, it looked like you weren't interested. I'm like, no, I was very much interested. It's just like, if someone says, I'm thinking of killing myself, and you're like, you're not, are you? Like, it's like, the whole thing is, I deliberately try and let a person speak and not react to it, because any subtle cues that we give and stuff, like if we get that shocked look or surprised look on our face, can can tell a person that actually don't carry on. So what we want to do is if you don't have to have any training for this whatsoever, because we always say, what do I say to someone in that situation? Well, that's because we all want to fix. We all want to be the fixer, and we desperately want that friend to not be in as much pain. But actually, one of the best ways to help them get out of that pain is, again, as I said before, most people who are suicidal probably think that they're a terrible person. They probably think that the world's a terrible place, and they think that it's always going to be this way. And if you can kind of say to them, look, I don't know how to help you in this situation, but I'm here for you. Tell me about it. And then and then let them talk. And there's an expression that, again, someone who talks as much as I do, you'd think that I don't know this, but there's an expression I love, so that is, let the silence do the work. Right? How many times do we finish people's sentences? How many times do we ask a question mid-answer because we're trying to keep the conversation moving forward? If they tell you something and you think there's more there, say, can you tell me a bit more about that? And then wait. It'll be 5 seconds. It'll be the most uncomfortable 5 seconds of your life. But if you give 3 seconds into that, start talking again, then you basically can ultimately derail that train of thought again. It's very important for that person to get those things out. So space, silence, but just reminding them that you are a person, you care, you want to hear about it. Someone wanting to hear your story. It's what most of us do our jobs for, So yeah, do that. And you don't need any training to listen. You just actually, if anything, you need to do less. Your active listening needs to be like just listening and being there and being present and hearing what's being said. You don't need to be filling in with questions all the time or suggestions. You're not there to fix. You're just there to be a friend.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. I think there we've got a really good picture of suicide prevention, what's available, what we can do as individuals, and I hope you found that section informative. Now I do want to go on to sort of the heavier stuff. Now we are going to talk about suicide and attempted suicide, and Matt he's willing to share his experiences of it. And I just want to say, Matt, thank you very much for doing this. I know for anyone watching, you may be concerned that afterwards opening up this conversation can be really difficult for someone. So just to let you know that after our webinars, we do have a debrief to make sure that everyone's okay, and we will keep in regular contact afterwards, because these things are really hard to talk about. So Matt, can I ask you please just to share some of your sort of personal journey?
Yeah, I mean, for me, suicide has been something that has been in the back of my thought plan ever since I was young. And I've just never actually had the guts to do it. So from being a child to a young person, and I guess one of the things that normalized it for me as a child was when I'd come down, do something wrong, walk in the kitchen, and there was my mom with a kitchen knife held to her wrist, saying words plainly, "Do you want me to kill myself?" And that wasn't an isolated event, it happened a lot. So you can imagine it's like how you deal with issues. For me as a child, say, 6, 7 years old, you know, being brought up with seeing this visual that this is how we deal with problems, you know, this is how you end things, this is how you do. And also at that age, you know, it's like seeing your mom. Now, I have to say with that, at that age, I'd actually started drinking alcohol. My mom was also one of my abusers growing up. But irrespective of that, as a child, I didn't realise the impact of all of that, but I just saw my mom constantly saying, do you want me to end it? Do you want me to end it all? So that really set a seed in my life, and it's something that I always struggled with. And there are times in my life after that where especially when I started driving, I'd wake up in cold sweats because I'd see a clear visions of me actually going to kill myself in my car, how I'd roll my car, you know, where it would happen, how it would happen. And a couple of times I was so afraid I actually gave up my keys randomly to people because at that time I was still struggling not to do it. And particularly more so when I started my journey, you know, 20 odd years ago working with young people. But where it, I guess, kind of moving on from there, and I want to just say with this discussion of my life, if anybody wants to know more or wants to ask questions, not only through this, Sam, you can make my email or whatever, you know, accessible. But where it really became real for me was only a matter of a few years ago when twice in 2 years, as well as having thoughts of doing it and anxiety attacks, I actually, one was close to an attempt, but one was an actual attempt on my life. And it came out of after my younger sisters, who I have no contact with anymore, her husband was a narcissist, conned me out of my mum's, like my inheritance from my mum after she died, used a time when I was vulnerable, tried to kill me, threatened to kill me, threatened to assault me, threatened legal action against me, you know, and all this sort of stuff. The guy is a narcissist bordering on psychopath, which is what I'd learned later. And I was in such a state. And for 2 years, I told nobody. And I thought I had to carry this on my own. I felt guilt. I felt like I was worthless. I'd lost this. I'd lost what seemed like my future. You know, I was then battling. I'd been battling with different bouts of depression through my life, through abuse and stuff. And this was the icing on the cake. So the first year it happened, I had the worst Christmas. Imagining Christmas has always been hard for me throughout my entire life. And the fact that I lost my mum and abuser over Christmas and just dealing with the emotion of that. Well, basically, that sort of early January went back, met with, the first time it happened, met with an intern I had a worst meeting I'd ever had, because it had to be a hard conversation. I came out of it blaming myself, and I was walking through, because I was in Hull at the time, walking through the streets at Hull late at night, which I would not advise for anybody, because it's not exactly the safest place. But I did that, and I was wrestling, and people were trying to, I called my uncle, talking to a friend, but never said anything. I just was talking generally, and I just couldn't get the words out. And then, like I say, this whole other stuff had gone on a year before and then afterwards. And so that night I woke up and I found myself headed for the Humber Bridge, which is one of the highest, and I knew this, I researched it, it's one of the highest hotspots in the area for people, you know, committing suicide. And I got to the edge there and I looked over, and because I also suffer with learning difficulties, one of which is dyspraxia, the depth perception of the night, the rushing water, the height, it actually saved my life, because it actually made me step back and push me back. It was like this force, I was ready to jump over, but this force pushed me back because my brain just couldn't compute. And it was weird how something so simple would save my life. So I ended up in A&E, got limited support from there. But the struggle didn't end, which then led to, as I say, almost my life ending and being ended the next year. To the very next year, at the same time of year, I went into this really dark place of depression. And at that time, I changed it up. And again, I researched. I was looking at buying guns. I was looking at, rope that could hold my weight and where it would happen. But the places I would choose was too public. I didn't want to hurt anybody else through doing it. So that year, I actually took an overdose of sleeping pills. And I want to just talk a little bit about the thoughts and feelings around that point. Is leading up to that, I actually thought, I've heard people say that suicide is a selfish act. It's not. For a lot of people, it's what they believe is a selfless act, that people will be better off without them. Because you go through a mental state where you can damage relationships without not wanting to. You are so struggling in your own mind, and when nobody's contacting you or helping you because they just don't know, and when you just live alone, feel alone, and everything around you seems falling apart, whether it is or not, you just feel lost, and you just think, you know what, people will be happier if I'm not here. I'll be doing these people a service. Nobody wants me, nobody cares about me, never have, so what's the point? And I got to this place, and I fought with it. I took them, and there was a feeling I had, and I have seen it and heard it said many times. I actually did some more research on it afterwards, but I felt, as soon as I'd done it, a point of regret. It was that point of, what have I just done? And it was a point of, it was a point for me of, I didn't want to end it all. In a sense, I didn't. It was that thing of, I've done it now. So what now? And so, but in that instant, before I passed out or anything, I actually found the strength to call 111, and anyway, an ambulance came and stuff, and I got support from there. But it was that instant of regret, of thinking, right, now I've done it. But also in that moment, there was actually a feeling of remembrance of people in my life. Because I had a thing where I would sabotage relationships to protect me, but because I thought I was protecting them. I never wanted people to get close. And that comes because of my history of people that I should have trusted, I couldn't trust because of the abuse, be it at school, be it at home, be it places that I should have felt safe. All I knew was abuse. All I knew was pain. All I knew was being bullied and being tortured emotionally. And I'd always reach out to the wrong people. So in that moment, I was like, there's nothing for me. But in that moment, it was like, there was something inside of me said, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to have what have I done? And I thought, I also thought, why I'm feeling with this. It was crazy, the feelings you have in that moment. And for some, if you jump off somewhere, and I heard this as a survivor jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, it was that instant regret. But then obviously, then it was like thinking the end. Fortunately, he was one of the few survivors who actually broke limbs but landed and was safe. But it is that feeling of, not wanting to do it. And this is a common effect, but it's never out of selfish. It's never out of hurt. It's out of wanting to do better. So, yeah, and I guess so for me, it was that. And then really just realizing actually I need to do something. And now I'm going to say this, some people do it and they will feel the regret, but they still struggle to get past that, that feeling, well, it's done now, or it's too, it is so final, and depending on the method of suicide used. But there is that war, I guess, to say, that does go on in the brain the action all the way up to the action, and even for those where there is that gap afterwards, where it happens. And just to say this, a few years prior, in 2019, I saw my dad try and take his life, through different things. And that didn't snap me out of it. Again, it fueled the fact of it was a way forward. And he said the same, that he felt regret, and felt nobody loved him. And he had a family around him. But for me, there's all this going on in my mind, and I was wrestling at war. But then when I finally was able to start talking about it, like my mum's younger brother drove from Newcastle, to Hull to speak to me. And then other family got involved. And by them helping was what helped me heal. And so what I would say for me, and I'm sorry to go on, was the fact that, they had no knowledge of what to do in that thing. It was just that they were there and they said, come on, let's go out. Let's go eat. Let's just talk. What happened? What's going on? And that support is what leaded me to leave Hull and move here, to be closer to my mum's younger brother, who was a stable force for me growing up. So what I would say is it's about finding that one person, whoever that is, and holding on to it. But it's about, don't hold it in. Whatever you do, whatever you're going through, don't hold it in. There's nothing bad enough that you can't share that you've done. You are not worthless because of it. You're not a mess because of it. You are not, you are worth so much more than your life has to offer. And don't think you have to battle alone. If one person can't do it, push you away, don't quit. Make you focus. I need help. There are services out there that will help you, but also you think about those people who are stable for you, who will help you. And it's about accessing it, talking, and allowing then the right help to be involved to help you actually take back some control.
There's a few things I want to say, Matt. The first one is I am so glad that you are still here with us. So thank you for not giving up. It's left me a bit speechless, and I know I spoke to you before, but thank you very much for sharing that. And I know how difficult it is for you to do. And I just want to say as well that I'm extremely sorry for the things that you've been through. But I am so inspired by you in the fact that you are now giving back and trying to prevent people going to the position that you were in. So a huge thank you for sharing that. And as I said afterwards to people watching, I know that is really hard to listen to. And we will be ensuring that afterwards we do have a conversation. We're not just going to cut the call and then that's it. So, Matt, thank you very much for sharing that. Dave, is there anything you want to comment on before?
Well, yeah, again, just thank you so much for sharing that. And it was really powerful. And again, I'm also glad that you're still here, and also really sorry to hear about all the things that you went through. No child should ever have to go through that, and that being some of their first memories. There's just something I kind of want to touch on, because a lot of Matt's story resonated with me, and it's only since, I tried to take my own life 11 years ago. So, and a lot of what you've just said really kind of, particularly saying like feeling like you are a burden. That was exactly where I was. I was totally and utterly, and I've done like research since then and stuff. And there's something called Beck's triad. And Beck's triad is 3 lies or distortions that your brain will tell you when you're suicidal. Number 1 is that you are lacking in some way, so you are worthless, you're not good enough, whatever it might be. Second one is that the world is a terrible place, or that nobody likes me, there's no one there for me. And the third one is that it's always going to be this way. So there's a phrase or a sort of meme that goes around, which is suicide is a permanent answer to temporary pain. First of all, it's hardly ever temporary pain. It's not like, and the person who's experiencing it, I imagine when when you were feeling that way, you'd been feeling that pain since the age of 6 or 9, like pre-teen, basically, you've been feeling that pain, and you were still feeling that pain as an adult. And in your head, you probably thought, I'm going to feel this pain forever. And that's the whole thing, is like, when we have to hold something, if we have to hold a weight for like 5 minutes, it's kind of heavy. If we have to hold that same weight for 5 hours, it's a lot heavier. If we have to hold that weight for 5 years, for an eternity, it multiplies. So whatever pain a person who is suicidal is feeling, that pain, think of the worst thing you've ever felt and imagine it multiplied by 1,000,000. You're probably getting somewhere near there. It doesn't feel like temporary pain. But the most important thing about those 3 things is that all of them are lies. Like, number one, you, as Matt just said before, you are so much. You're not just worth your life; you're worth more than your life. The world is a terrible place, and no one out there likes me. It's a generalization. You need to find one person that does, and if you can't find one person that does, be the person that likes yourself. I know that sounds really cheesy and cliche, but to be fair, we do. We all need to speak to ourselves a lot more like we would to a friend or to someone that we love. But a depressed brain doesn't think that way. And the third thing is, when instead of thinking, it's always going to be like this, the phrase "this too shall pass" has been one of the most transformative phrases for me in the whole world. About 6 years after my suicide attempt, I was dragged in by my GP, and they actually decided to give me some proactive care. And they put me in touch with someone who did mindfulness. And like, she taught me that phrase in the first week, and gone from, I have bipolar disorder, so my brain's like, I'm either always like this or this is going to come crashing down. Knowing that this will pass, the depression will pass, and also the mania will pass too, although I usually don't want the mania to pass, if I'm perfectly honest. Knowing that all of these things are temporary, and that they will change, and there's the potential for change. That's the biggest thing about suicide, is it's the potential. We don't just take away the life, we take away the potential that is beyond in the life. Like, you've gone on to do so much different and so much more since that day. I genuinely 100% believed 11 years ago that my kids deserved a better dad, and I couldn't be that man. And I've spent the last 11 years trying to be that man. And they have a pretty decent dad now, and I do stuff like this with Sam. So it's like, but the big thing that I want to drive home to anyone who's watching right now is that I 100% believed I had nothing left to give 11 years ago. I've given so much since then. And I'm not even started yet. And it's like, but it's that distortion. Your mind, when it is depressed, will distort what you see and make you see it in a way that is not what is true. None of us see hardly anything in what is true. We all have our own distortions, but depression, anxiety, mental health issues, they will distort the reality into a version that is just not right. It's not accurate. And if you're not getting input in your life and people telling you that, you need to kind of begin to start challenging those things yourself.
And then, Dave, with the, just to refer what you were speaking about then, was that the barrier to you reaching out for help?
Oh yeah, so the barrier for me reaching out to help, I reached out for help in that I'd basically burnt all my bridges in the year before my attempt. Basically, I'd gotten into a relationship that was bad for me, did everything for her, lost my family, lost my friends. Lost my ability to cook and clean for my children, and then just sunk further and further into my depression. So I didn't know who to reach out to in that moment. So I basically did, and I advise everyone against this. I did the whole, reach out to everyone at the same time, which is put it on social media, and I basically put on social media, I need a hug. That was my cry for help, was that. And by the way, I don't hate the phrase cry for help, by the way. I actually think we need to change our attention about our idea about it, because if someone breaks their leg and cries for help, then we run and help them. And we get, it's like, so if someone's suicidal and cries for help, run and help them. It's the same. If someone's physical health is struggling, like, you don't, if someone was there, having a stroke in front of you, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's a cry for help, you need medical attention. It's like, you're damn right I do. Like, the same with someone who's suicidal. But my cry for help was putting I need a hug on Facebook. And remember that second part, nobody likes me, right? So, or there's nobody there for me. I drove home from Liverpool to my house, which is 45-minute drive. And when I got home, there was no one who'd given me a hug via Facebook. And that isn't, anyone who's watching now will go, that's not conclusive proof that no one likes you. That's just the Facebook algorithm or whatever, or stop being such an attention seeker. I'm not an attention seeker. I'm a connection seeker. But to me, in that state of mind that I was in, well, that was all the proof I needed. That, like I said before, if a friend walks away when you say I need help, and they go, I don't know how to help you, sorry. Even that is like, okay, I don't know how to help you, but I'm here for you, is a better way to say that. I'll sit and talk with you. I know it's right, we have to do it over Zoom and stuff nowadays, but soon hugs will be back on the menu, and you're all in trouble then. But basically, what ended up happening is I ended up leaving the hospital after I was there because at the time my mum had been the one that had come with me, and she was giving me the speech about how I could do this and all that stuff, which again, no one who's in that position wants to hear that speech. And so I ran away from the hospital and went to one of my best friend's house, who was one of the people I'd stopped speaking to. And I basically was just like burst out into tears, and I'm like, I know we're not speaking right now, but I really need you. Now, in hindsight, I wish that was the message that I sent. Instead of going to Facebook and trying to when you try and reach everyone, you end up reaching no one, right? You know, because everyone else, if you've got 500 friends on Facebook, then every single one of them will go, someone else will pick this up. You go one-to-one to a friend, and then like, well, it's not a group chat, it's nothing. Like, even group chats I'd stay away from. Go one-to-one with the person. Ultimately, there's 1 or 2 or 3 people in the world that you'd actually want to be there for you. So speak to them directly. It's terrifying. It's scary. For me to have actually said that, my mum was probably one of them. To be fair, at the time, my mum was one of them. The girl that I'd just ruined everything for was probably the other one, because, you know, love does things to your brain. And the third one would have been my best friend, Stu. And what I should have done, I definitely shouldn't have reached out to the girl, but I should have reached out to my mum or Stu. And I did reach out to my mum in the same way that after I'd started the process of my method, that was when I reached out to my mum, and that was how she ended up at my house with the police in an ambulance, which is how I ended up in hospital. But basically is reach out to the person that you really want to hear from, rather than saying I'm going to reach out to everyone and see who comes through, because who comes through will probably be like the nosy person that comes into your DMs, you know. It's like, and we've all seen it, like, you know, basically someone will put this up and then someone will say what's wrong in the comments, and then they'll be like, DM me. It's like we've usually with the word hun on there. I don't know why hun is so apparent, but yeah, it's like, okay, reach out to the person, the person that you want to speak to. And if there isn't that person, please use the helplines. That's what they are there for. I've used them. They're amazing, and I know a bunch of people that work on them who are all amazing, and yeah, that's what they're there for.
And I think I was going to ask you a few questions, Matt, but I think because we're coming towards we've gone over an hour already.
We always do.
Because I don't want to take you back there anymore, or anyone else. I think it'd be really good to sort of round this session up with basically a message of hope. So if there are people watching this that may feel like they don't want to be here anymore, I'd just like each of us to send a message to those individuals. And I think that is a perfect way to kind of round this episode up. Katharine. So, Katharine, do you want to go first? Not Kath, Katharine.
Okay, that's me. Yeah. Well, yeah, go back and watch the recording of this, because sometimes, you know, it takes a few times for those messages to get through. But what I firmly believe is that everybody absolutely has something within them that is so special, so unique, and so important. And you might not know it straight away, and it might take time to realise what that is, but give yourself that opportunity to realise your potential, because you are amazing.
Perfect. Kath?
I think I would sort of say you are worthwhile. You are valuable. You're not alone. I hope that through this session today, we've shown that you're not alone, and I hope that we've encouraged more strangers to say, actually, I can have that conversation, and I can help somebody to perhaps not feel like they are alone, but you are worthwhile and you are valid.
Perfect. Matthew?
Yeah, I think for me, what I'd say is to really echo the fact that you are valid, you have worth, but also, do you know what? You don't have to make your past the influence of your future. You have a story of change to bring, and your story will have more power than any psychology textbook ever could attempt at doing. Your story can change lives. And it's about living that, but also about realizing that in a world that we live in where hopelessness prevails and where it's easy to feel hopeless, particularly with things that are put out through social media or whatever, or the news or whatever, and just in life with our own thoughts, our own history, it's actually saying, do you know what? That happened, but I have hope for the future. I do matter. I do have a place. I do have a purpose, and I can make a difference. And my life ahead does not have to be tied down, but I can actually use my past to help somebody else. And also, you know, I can use what I have to be more vigilant to the world around me, to who I can make a difference. But just to say, you know, don't quit. Reach out to friends, family, or as they've said, ring the numbers. You are not alone. There are other people that have gone through it and survived. There are people that truly understand, you know, and there's things like this is working to break the stigma across the board, so that you get the quality of support that you rightly need and you rightly deserve. You are loved. You are loved. And like I say, whatever it takes for you to get the feelings you have out, be it writing, talking, drawing, get it out and use that as well as a basis for support. But what I'd say is today, do not hold it in. Do not hold anything in. Start talking, pick up the phone even now and start having that conversation with somebody. And don't quit, don't give up, you know, don't give in. Whatever you do, don't give in.
Thanks, Matt. Dave, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'll do a poem because that's just me and I'm weird. So this is actually somewhere else on this channel. It's a poem called The Story Isn't Over. The story isn't over. It doesn't have to end this way. So long as there is breath in your lungs, there is still a chance for change. I won't trivialize the pain you feel and have carried for so long, but at the same time, I won't underestimate your potential to be strong. You're a warrior, oh friend of mine, but when you catch your own reflection, you don't see quite what I see, you just see someone falling short of perfection. And as you say, it will always be this way. That is one of 3 big lies. The other 2 saying the world is terrible and you are worthy of despise. This triangle of distortion has been felt by many folk before, including me, which is why I sit and write these words and more. To tell you that these thoughts are simply opinions, not facts. To help you to move away from a decision where there is no turning back. To remind you that you're valued and you are wanted on this earth. To tell you you are worthy until you are ready to see your own worth. To tell you, though you may not see it, there is always another way. To keep you here. So, like Matthew, you can be the reason someone else gets through one day. To tell you your feelings are valid and to sit with you in the dark and to show you on the horizon a faint but potent spark. The journey from this point is difficult, it's true, but believe me when I tell you the world won't be better without you.
I'm not going to add anything after that because I haven't got a poem. I can rap. I can do a bit of rap if you want, but it'd be freestyle.
Sammy T in the house, yo.
Yeah, I know that was there's a lot more that we could talk about there, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming on to this webinar, in particular Matt for sharing your story. I think it's really important that we do open the conversation up and share our experiences. I know myself and Dave have opened up about ours on previous episodes. I think it's really, really important that we do that. So a huge thank you for sharing your story today, Matt. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Katharine and Kath for coming on. Thank you for Dave for ending with the wonderful poem. If anyone does want to get in contact again, just sam.tyrer, Tyrer, at lscft.nhs.uk. And if anyone does need to reach out for support, please do look at the services available to you in your area. Type in the Hub of Hope or download the app, type in your postcode, and basically it will list all the services available to you in your area. So thank you very much for tuning in. Next week, we've got an episode on postpartum psychosis, so please do tune into that. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the start to the guests and the people watching. I know that was a little bit stressful. I was panicking, I tell you now. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm just going to leave the stream up for a little bit longer because I don't know how it cuts off now. But...
So just pause with your best face.
Yeah.
Done, Dave.
Yeah, we're done.
Perfect.
Cool.